Sound the alarms, everybody. The AI nation is attacking again, and it's got the Navy.
Not the Navy!
Earlier this week, Valve announced the pricing for the Steam machine. Over $1,000 to get your hands on the GameCube, and people are upset, mad, and once again facing the reality of hardware prices that's inflated by technology that turns Jesus into a DJ. And this is, I don't even know how to explain this, dude. Which is a great segue to hit you once again with the classic, we fight not with flesh and blood, but with principalities and evil in corrupt and high places. And when I see these prices, especially from Valve, the company that everybody praises and like lifts up in the bar mitzvah chair, I can't help but ask the question, what does the future look like? And every single time I try and answer it, I just keep coming back to this stupid 3DS thing, the Thor running iiSU. Now, I know what this looks like. I'm just shilling out again for the Thor, and I've already made a bunch of videos on this thing. But for today, it's not just the hardware that I really want to focus on here. It's actually the software inside of this thing, front ends, Android front ends. I believe that this is the cornerstone of whatever the heck is coming next. And right before all this doom and gloom nonsense with the Steam machine had spawned, iiSU had dropped a video and a brand new update that has changed the game, dude, and made me more convinced that this truly is heading in the right direction. I've seen a lot of people who are just confused about Android front ends and why they even matter. A lot of people think they serve no purpose and are just flashy, gimmicky ways to organize your games, which bothers the crap out of me when I see people clowning on them. It's like if I walked into your room and I was like, dude, you actually use a dresser to organize all of your clothes? That's dumb as hell. Check out my room. Emulation as a whole is such a pain in the ass, dude. You've got emulators, ROMs, settings, folders, BIOS files, hotkeys, random little cursed menus scattered all over the place. And for me, it just completely ruins the experience because it was a difficult thing for my smooth-ass brain just to learn RetroArch. But now I got to learn everything else. You know, I can't imagine my life without front ends, because when they're done right, they completely change what it means to play retro games or a lot of modern games now. They bring in features like retro achievements. They've got things to scrape different artwork so you're not just staring at some disgusting ROM file. And the majority of these work across different systems. So you can transform something like your phone into a console-like gaming machine. It's truly a crazy thing what front ends are able to do. But unfortunately, for the longest time, I've viewed these front ends as like the software equivalent of Combustion, okay? You know, kind of ugly, kind of weird design, but still useful and very powerful in the right context. However, things have drastically changed just within the past year, and even more so in the past couple of weeks thanks to the newest update from iiSU. I think at this point, Blaziken has now arrived and he's setting all of us on fire. First off, it's just a way more polished experience now. I mean, even in its current alpha state, I can actually see someone wanting to use this every single day on their handheld. The biggest improvement I've seen is just simply the visual noise. It's not nearly as overwhelming when you're setting this thing up, and also navigating the menu and whatever it is that your eyeballs are looking at makes more sense visually to you. And that was a huge issue I had before. It was so overwhelming, I didn't know what was going on. And now things are falling into place and you can feel that. And because it's more visually clean, it helps that Frutiger Arrow aesthetic shine through more. And when I finished setting this whole thing up, I'm not gonna lie, it gave me that like tingle again that I first got when I initially set up my Thor, and I started freaking out a little bit because it feels like some type of sequel. I've got the 4DS here. The biggest selling point for iiSU compared to all the other front ends isn't just the charm and quirky design of it, but also the major emphasis on there being a home screen that isn't only dedicated to your games. They want you to customize this menu setup, this first page, however you want. On the right side, I've got my little logo here to personalize the device and make it feel like mine. And then the middle section, I've got just this nostalgia bait Pokemon GIF that I really like the way it looks. At the top, I've got this jump back in section that recommends and shows my most recently played game. And then on the left side, I've just got a couple of games that I wanted to place there. And then the bottom left is, you know, just a retro achievements thing that I threw up on there for Animal Crossing. And this is it. This is like just a little taste of what you can do with this front end and how much you can personalize it with so many different things going on. If you're somebody who buys retro handhelds just for the games and you don't care how it looks, this is your worst nightmare. The way that they integrated dual screens now with iiSU is so much better than it was previously, dude. You can customize 2 different home screens, one for the top screen and one for the bottom. You can slide between different screens with the press of Y, which is something that I really liked about the Cocoon launcher. And when you're actually playing the games, you can choose then what shows on the second screen. You know, keep the home menu there, make it a black screen, or even show some game art. They're really just going all out for anybody who owns an Thor, which actually isn't that many because it's still on pre-order. The biggest reason I can see why people would not like this software and it would be a huge turnoff for them is the fact that it can fall into the category of bloatware. There are a lot of features, a lot of customization options, and they're even planning this entire social hub and ecosystem where it's more than just a front end that launches your games. It's a double-edged sword. On one hand, all of this extra features and customization can feel very overwhelming. And if the menu becomes too busy or the social features get too distracting, it starts to feel like the games are getting buried underneath the software and it's not even the main focus. And that's where you run into an issue. But then on the other hand, if they stripped it down to a more bare bones project, it just wouldn't be iiSU anymore. The whole point of this thing is to go beyond what we're used to seeing as a front end and do other things that don't necessarily pertain to only the games. I feel like iiSU is trying to be more of a full handheld experience instead of just a game launcher. And that's what gets me excited because they're literally paving a new lane for themselves. And maybe it's just because I'm a kid who grew up with the Wii and Wii U, but I have such a deep love for menu systems and the overall vibe and atmosphere that they're able to create. I used to just sit here for hours when I was a kid, messing around with the sound effects and browsing between different channels that I didn't even open. And this is being adopted now in the modern age with iiSU. And I'm glad because it seems like every other mainline gaming company and console doesn't prioritize the atmosphere the way that iiSU or the Wii and Wii U used to do. Things can get messy with the chat integration, and the social aspects I think are my biggest concern. I don't know how the moderation's gonna look like. I don't know the privacy stuff. Like that's a whole other ball game that I don't have any idea how it's gonna turn out. But at the end of the day, I like the fact that they're experimenting and pushing the boundaries forward. You don't have to use this if you want a simple, more game-focused front end without any extra noise. You've got options. I mean, Cocoon, ESDE, Beacon, and I even saw this new cartridge one that's like a focus on the physical cartridges, and it looks pretty cool. And these are popping up all the time. I feel like I see a new front end every other week. To me, it's beautiful because as front ends get more creative, the Android handhelds that we all own start to feel less like little emulator boxes and more like actual gaming devices with their own identity and feeling. Now, so far, I've mostly just been focusing on retro games. Meanwhile, I'm positioning this to be the future, which sounds insane. And yes, I am an idiot, but I would like to tell you that there have been some advancements, at least in terms of modern gaming on front-end software. I'm sure you're well aware by now. I've made a bunch of videos on this, but these things, these little Android handhelds, can play Steam games now. And thanks to some recent updates, we can now add all of these Steam games to our front ends and combine them with all of our other retro games. So you can launch your retro games and your Steam game. And depending on how demanding the Steam game is, you can play brand new titles. Like there's some new indie games that you could totally launch and play right out the gates from your front end on your Android handheld. And now you see the vision. Do you see where I'm connecting things, dude? We got this thing that gives us access and opens the door to the retro games. And then it's got the Steam games flooding in. The front ends themselves are getting nicer and prettier with things like iiSU. Like it's all coming together at a time where everybody else is freaking out about pricing, and that's what sparked this whole video. I'm like, dude, it just makes me want to point to these things again. It's not perfect, and I would still categorize these little handhelds as retro first, and then if you're lucky, you can play some of the newer, more modern games if they're lightweight enough on these things. So keep that in mind. I don't want to preach some idealistic thing that you could play any Steam game you want on this thing. I know it kind of sounds stupid for me to like pitch these things as the future, and it's like, oh, hey guys, I know that you can't play those new Steam games anymore that are AAA, but at least we can play Super Mario World for the 800th time. And I have to face reality, dude. I've been using the Thor as this big, shiny example in this video, but even this thing is getting hit by the same inflation problem. The Thor is on batch 7 pre-orders, and these things don't start shipping until August. The prices have already increased a bunch. It's no bueno. It's overwhelming hearing everybody talk about AI and all of this like stuff that's impacting people, and even for me, I've seen it impact stuff that I'm doing. A lot of you guys know that I make stupid, goofy, mid-white rap music and produce songs every once in a while, and very rarely I will get companies reaching out to me asking me to help them with some music stuff. And just a couple of months ago, I had a company reach out to me, and then they told me in the meeting, I don't know why they told me this, that they're thinking about using AI to create music to then market their product. And I was just like, dude, this is okay, this is some serious stuff, man. And then I've got a couple of friends who work a normal corporate job and are actually employed, unlike my unemployed ass, and they were telling me about how essentially all of the CEOs and people in higher positions are really pushing and forcing this AI to be used and utilized all throughout the company. And then the people in lower level positions are just using it for everything. Like everything they do just has AI involved. It doesn't matter. The emails, the writing, the image making, it's all just a bunch of AI. And then they're obviously regurgitating that back up to the top. And then the people who are managers are getting upset like, dude, why is the product not good? What's happening? This is horrible. What are you doing? And then the people at the bottom are like, well, we're just using the technology that you wanted us to use. And it's this loop that's going back and forth. And it's just, I don't know, dude. The main point I'm trying to get across in this Yap session is just the principle of everything. You know, playing retro games, using front ends, and combining your old library with newer stuff, and making the devices that you already own do more things and be more capable. This can apply to so many different pieces of hardware and games. Your phone now, more than ever, is a huge resource that you can tap into for front ends or just emulation or simply playing games from the App Store. It's gotten a lot better, and I think that this is going to be an area that will pick up the slack in the expensive mainline gaming department. There's things like a $30 streaming box from Walmart that you can buy and then install RetroArch on and get some retro games on your TV in the living room. And you know, this isn't the most insane thing. I tried to put iiSU on it and it almost destroyed the entire thing, but it kind of sort of worked. I don't know. I'm no moral saint. I'm not trying to stand on a high ground here, but it's been an experience trying to understand and educate myself on what's happening amidst the chaos of the internet. And you know what? Let's end on a positive note, guys. So where's the silver lining here? The silver lining is that none of us can afford the Steam machine, but we can at least play retro games on the $30 Walmart device. There it is. We're set. Yo. Welcome to the outro beat. Today, I want to make like a, what do I want to make today? Like a PlayStation, I don't know. If I was to make a front end, okay, and like have my own menu, I want to make the beat that I would want in the background of that menu. So I'm feeling like a PS2 startup, PlayStation kind of space, eerie, creepy, but like also kind of cool. Maybe a little bit of drums, maybe a little bit of let's just get into it. There was also a lot of really nice comments in my last video, and I just wanted to say thank you so much to people who were hyping me up, and just me being gone for a couple of weeks and then seeing the comments of everybody being hyped that I was back, and it was just very nice, and I got a lot of good comments, and also some good criticism. I am like constantly working on these videos and trying to get better at them. So whether or not you leave criticism or you leave a positive comment, just thank you for clicking on the videos. I just want to get better at these videos. That's it. Thank you so much for being here. sounds very PlayStation-y, doesn't it? That sounds so creepy, dude. I feel like I gotta close my window to, like, play this at the outro to match the vibe. It's too bright in here, bro.